All right, everybody, welcome back to the number one television program in the history of the universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Standing in the Shadows by Peter Robinson. This is book number 28 in Peter Robinson's Inspector Banks mystery series set in Yorkshire, England. Now, before I go any further, I will say that Peter Robinson did pass away not long ago, so I'm thinking this is probably going to be our last Inspector Banks novel. Now, I've got the entire Inspector Banks book collection up here. Maybe some of you saw my video I did a couple weeks ago about my Peter Robinson collection. Anyway, there is the entire 28 book Inspector Banks collection along with the newest one there. So anyway, it's sad that we lost another great writer of mystery novels, but he certainly left us a legacy of great books that will live on long after he's gone. And so anyway, let's talk about the cover first. One of the things if you watched my Peter Robinson book collection video, one of the things you'll notice one of the reasons I love this book collection is because they got great covers. I love this cover. It's got the old ruined abbey in the background, it's just a scene reminiscent of Yorkshire, England, a place in which I have been. I've been to some of these old ruined abbeys in York, like Robichaux. Was it not Robichaux? Rivaux Abbey. Robichaux is the Inspector Robichaux is the guy in all the James Lee Burke novels set in Louisiana. No, Rivaux Abbey. This is not Rivaux Abbey. Rivaux Abbey is actually bigger than this, but Rivaux Abbey is just kind of like a old ruined abbey, much like Tintern Abbey in Wales. Anyway, I love the cover. That's all I'm trying to say. I think the cover is cool. I like when the publishers just, if a book is set in New England, or if it's set in Yorkshire, or if it's set in the desert Southwest, or if it's set in Rome, just give me a cover of the beautiful landscape of that part of the world, and I'm good to go. I'm good to go. Anyway, so this book starts out in 1980. It's got flashback scenes. In fact, it's got a lot of flashback scenes, and they all flash back to 1980, where there's a dead girl found in a university apartment building. And Nicholas Hartley is being interviewed by the police because he lives in the same apartment building. And turns out that even though Nicholas kind of pretends that he doesn't really know the girl that well, turns out he actually kind of knew the girl pretty well because they were going out on dates together. They were possibly boyfriend and girlfriend. Possibly. That is for the reader to figure out. So anyway, that's the setup of the murder. It's 1980. And then we jump to 2019. Grace Hutchinson is digging around in an ancient Roman ruin up in northern England, and finds a human skull in the ruin, in the archaeological dig that she's doing. She finds a human skull. Well, once bones are found in archaeological digs, they always shut things down, and a crime scene investigator comes, and they try to determine, is this really an ancient Roman? Is it someone from 2,000 years ago? Or is it somebody that just got dumped out here, a couple years ago? Or maybe in 1980. Which Inspector Banks comes to the scene. He suspects that the skull might be more recent than, an ancient Roman soldier. And in fact, could it be this girl, could it be tied to this murder in the university apartment that happened in 1980? Could it be? Could it all be interconnected? So anyway, Inspector Banks, our main character, recruits our Grace, the archaeologist, to help him in solving this mystery. And Inspector Banks, just in case you don't know who he is, there's 28 novels. This is number 28. So In the very first few novels, we find out that Inspector Banks, he was a cop in London. He moved out to northern England, to the Yorkshire countryside, to be a police because he thought being a police in the New York in the York countryside would be a lot easier, more relaxing. Well, it turns out it wasn't, and there's murders. There's a lot of murders, and in fact, there's like a lot, 20 enough to fill 28 books worth of murders. And so Inspector Banks has had quite an adventurous life in Yorkshire. He should have just stayed in London. Might have been easier there. Anyway, I liked the present story. I liked the Inspector Banks storyline in the present more than the flashbacks. And it's probably because I like Inspector Banks. I've got to know him and his family and his history over the course of 28 books. I just as soon stick with him through the whole book. The flashbacks, I didn't really think that they were that interesting. And, other than that, they were giving you clues and stuff for the overall arc of the story. But again, another great book by Peter Robinson. I'm going to, rather than butcher the plot any further than I have, I'll just read what's on the jacket. So, in November 1980, Nick Hartley returns home from a university lecture to find his house crawling with police. His ex-girlfriend Alice Poole has been found murdered, and her new boyfriend, Mark Woodcroft, is missing. Dun dun dun. That's why skulls get found in archaeological digs, is because people go missing. Anyway, Nick is the prime suspect. He's the prime suspect. Not just the prime suspect. He is the prime suspect. The case quickly goes cold, but Nick cannot let it go. He embarks on a career in investigative journalism, determined to find Alice's murderer, but also obsessed. His obsession leads him down a dangerous path. Decades later, in 2019, an archaeologist unearths a skeleton that turns out to be far more contemporary than the Roman remains that she is seeking. Detective Alan Banks and his team are called in to investigate, but there is little to be gleaned from the remains themselves. Left with few clues, Banks and his team must rely on their wits to hunt down a killer. As these two cases unfurl, the investigations twist and turn in explosive ways. I guess I kind of described the book as good as the back jacket. But anyway, let's give this a 10 out of 10. Even though I didn't like the flashbacks, we're giving this book a 10 out of 10 because it's Peter Robinson's final novel, and he deserves, the whole series deserves accolades up the wazoo. 28 books, Inspector Banks. He's been keeping me entertained ever since the mid-90s, and I love it. Final book gets a 10 out of 10.